Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today I'm at Jimmy Grande Ford, and we're going to do a quick comparison between the 2021 Ford Ranger, this is the XLT trim level, and the 2021 Chevrolet Colorado. And while the trim levels may not really fit necessarily identically between each other, we'll still be able to get some good information just based on what was here at the lot. And yes, believe it or not, this 2021 Colorado has already been traded in. I think it's been here for a little while. So for whatever reason, somebody decided to go from Chevrolet to Ford. Kind of a good thing that I'm at a Ford dealership and that happens to be the case. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about history of each truck. Obviously, the Ranger has a much longer running history than does the Colorado. The Ranger first came on the scene with Ford in 1983 and has been through quite a few changes over the years. But of course, as you can see now, even though this still is Ford's smallest pickup truck, it's still not the size that it used to be. It's a larger truck, actually has more capabilities. Now, an interesting note to the Colorado as far as its history goes. Like I said, it actually came along in 2004 to replace the S10, which was a wildly popular truck for many, many years. And like I said, I'm at Jimmy Grande Ford in Stonewall, Louisiana, and just up the road, of course, is Shreveport, Louisiana, where the former General Motors plant was that produced not only the S10, but the Colorado as well. The Colorado hasn't been through quite as many changes over the years as has the Ranger. In fact, tell me down in the comments, which truck do you prefer and why? Of course, we'll take a look at the main information that everybody's going to want to know about: payload, towing capacity, all that good stuff, and see which truck ultimately wins out. But that's really up to you to decide down in the comments section. Now, obviously, the first question a lot of people are going to want to ask, what about pricing? Well, I'll list the trim levels for the 21 Ford Ranger and their base prices on the screen for you so you can see what those are. As far as the overall look, I definitely have to say that the Ranger wins out with a little bit more sporty look, a little bit more of a rounded look front end here, not so squared off. But of course, if you're familiar with the Honda Ridgeline, you know that truck that a lot of people like to turn their caps lock on with and say it's not a truck in comments in the videos that I make with the Ridgeline. Honda recently for 2021 actually created a more square looking front end. So a lot of people must think that really represents a truck more so than maybe a more swoopy looking front end with a little bit more of a slope to it. That is what you have here to a degree, a little bit more than the F-150s do, but then again, this is a step under as far as the size of the actual truck goes. A little bit more narrow, not quite as much wheelbase, but then again, the Ranger has always been the smallest truck that Ford has offered. And to give equal time, of course, here are the trim levels and base prices for those trim levels for the Colorado as well. Now, the thing that's different here, of course, like I said, the hood doesn't have quite the character lines, at least that's the way I like to put it. A little bit more of a flat hood, although it's not completely flat, but just not as much definition here as is on the Ranger. You do have a more squared off looking front end here. Doesn't have that sporty look that the Ranger does. So depending on what your preference is in that area, well, obviously that's going to make a difference. And obviously the next big question is going to come in the area of what's under the hood. There are some differences between these two trucks. This Ranger is motivated by a 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder. Of course, at one point when you thought of a 4-cylinder, you didn't exactly think of a decent amount of horsepower. But 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, not too terribly bad. That's put to the ground through a 10-speed automatic transmission. And one thing you'll notice on both trucks is that both have these struts to lift the hood, something I didn't exactly expect on either truck, found it on both. If you watch me regularly, you know I like that feature because of how convenient it is. You open the hood, you don't have to go hunting around for the rod to put in place to hold the hood up. Here under the hood of the Colorado is a 3.6-liter V6, 308 horsepower, 270 pound-feet of torque. Gas mileage, of course, is going to be a little bit different with a larger engine sucking more fuel with those 2 extra cylinders. 17 miles per gallon city, 24 out on the highway, what is estimated. Transmission, remember I said there's a 10-speed automatic in the Ranger? You're going to find an 8-speed automatic here in the Colorado, and of course that's going to be across all trim levels. Tell me in the comments, which transmission do you prefer and why? Okay, let's talk about the real meat and potatoes for somebody who likely wants to own a pickup. Payload and towing. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about these tailgates here. Both are lockable, so when you lock the interior with the remote, the tailgates themselves will of course lock as well, and you do have a lock here, a manual lock, if you want to use the key to lock or unlock that, or if the battery happens to die and you need to unlock it, well, you still can. The tailgate here on the Ranger is very light. That's very easy to open. And while the tailgate on the Colorado is dampened, it actually is a little bit heavier, so it's a good thing that it's dampened. But here is where we separate the two. Maybe not by a huge amount, but let me list on the screen, first of all, the payload and towing for the Ranger. And then, of course, we'll do the same here with the Colorado. And that's obviously going to vary from trim level and towing package and different things like that. But when you look at the high end of the capabilities of both trucks, notice that the 3.6-liter motivated Colorado can tow up to 7,000 pounds when properly equipped. And that Ford Ranger with the smaller 2.3-liter 4-cylinder beats it by 500 pounds when equipped with a towing package. So let's talk about versatility in the back seat of the Ranger. That should bring some interesting comments depending on what you think. Anyway, what you can do back here, you can lower these seat backs right here to not only gain access to the tire or the jack for changing a tire. There's also a little bit of storage back here, so you could probably throw some things back there, and you do have to slam that back pretty hard to get it to latch into place. At least that's what I noticed here. And you can also raise the seat themselves, the seat cushions up. Not only are there a couple of little storage areas underneath the seats, you can also gain access to the tire iron if that situation comes up where you need to change a tire. Hopefully you'll never have to, but at least you know where everything is if you ever need to. And when it comes to what you'll find in the front seat, of course, the seats are comfortable here in the Ranger. You got a nice instrument cluster and the steering wheel mounted controls, and basically the same setup in both trucks as far as controlling the headlights with the turn signal stalk on the left-hand side. Hopefully you use that regularly when you're out driving around, especially you Shreveport folks. And you can control the windshield wipers here on the right-hand side. Infotainment screen here. Ford and Chevrolet, I have to say, both have very easy to use and learn infotainment screens. I say this in a lot of my videos because it's true. If you've never owned a vehicle that has this kind of technology, don't be afraid of it. It's very easy to learn, not only just because it's simple to kind of use the hunt and peck method, but it's just simple overall to hop on YouTube and watch tutorials. Of course, you've got your controls for air conditioning and all that good stuff here, radio, volume, surfing through stations, and all that good stuff. Connectivity down here, 2 more USB ports here for the driver and passenger. And as you can just see here, cup holders and a reasonable amount of space there inside of the console. I would say you could probably fit a good 6 to 8 Vehicle Visionary t-shirts if you folded them just right down inside that console. But you do have the old-fashioned key here, no push-button start in this model either. But again, pretty simplistic, easy to operate. Got the instrument cluster, steering wheel mounted controls, and the same exact thing, like I said. Headlights controlled on the left, windshield wipers on the right. Make sure you use that turn signal stalk right there. If you're not familiar with how that works, for those of you especially living in Shreveport, Louisiana, when you push that lever up, the right blinker comes on. It means you're changing lanes to the right or turning right. And of course, when you push it down, the same thing applies to turning to the left. It's a quick little tutorial on how to use your blinkers. And if you want to know about blinker fluid, just go to your local auto parts store and just ask them for the part number and they'll tell you where to find that. If you actually do that, make a video out of it. Anyway, again, just like with Ford, Chevrolet does have a simple to use infotainment screen, and the screens are very similar sizes here between the two trucks, although you've got some additional controls down here underneath the screen to go home and different things like that, although it's not that big of a deal. Again, very simple to use, very simple to learn. Controls for your air conditioner right here underneath that. And you'll notice a few extra buttons here, a couple more USB ports, and a 12-volt power outlet underneath everything right there, and just a good old-fashioned shifter, similar to what we saw in the Ranger. But I will say, you probably could fit 10 to 12 Vehicle Visionary t-shirts inside of this console, and maybe even 1 or 2 folded just right in a little bit of storage space right here in front. Okay guys, we're gonna hop out here on the road for a quick little test drive here. I just wanted to give you a quick little acceleration test here just to show you how well this 2.3 liter 4-cylinder gets down the road. It's actually surprisingly good, and I'm just easing into the gas pedal. Definitely hear the engine working, but not terribly hard, but I'm getting up to the speed limit of 65 miles an hour absolutely without a problem. And you know, that's the advantage to a truck like this. It's not real heavy, it's not a full-size truck, but at the same time, it's heavy enough to have a pretty good ride. It's a little bit on the stiff side, but not too bad. But that's something you're going to get when you have some good off-roading capabilities. And even though when you compare the trucks we've looked at today, obviously the Ranger is going to really do a lot better job than the Colorado, but it depends on the trim level, of course, of the Colorado as to how that works. But overall, I must say, I really like the Ranger. It seems to ride pretty well. It's a truck, so it's going to have a little bit of a stiff ride, but it's not bad. It's easily bearable. I would definitely say for a truck, it's comfortable. Probably a lot better than those Rangers of years gone by that were more of a compact sized truck than what this particular model is. And obviously with the capabilities for payload and towing, it would be interesting to be able to test that out, but unfortunately I just don't have a way to do that today. But the advantage to that kind of thing is that with the horsepower and torque of this model, obviously when you're driving down the road without a trailer on the bumper or a payload in the bed, well, obviously getting down the road is not going to be a problem. All right, let's do the test drive with the Colorado. And the first thing I noticed when I got out on the road with this Colorado, remember, even though it's a 2021 model, it is used. I don't know its history. There's a lot of play in the steering wheel, so it doesn't feel as tight as I know it should. That might be one reason it was traded in. I don't know. The Ranger definitely felt a lot more stable on the road, and that could just be from one vehicle to the next because of the fact, like I say, this was a trade, even though it's a 2021 model. Now, as far as acceleration goes, if you drop the hammer to the floor here in the Colorado, it gets down the road pretty well, but it would be very interesting to get out and run the two against each other to see which would do better. I really feel that the Ranger would give this 310 horsepower V6 a pretty good run for its money. And when it comes to the ride quality, again, we've got to consider trim levels and the fact that I would really need to do more of a Bison Colorado Bison Colorado to really compare to that Ranger, because that's really more or less more comparable, I would say. So the ride here seems to be a little bit smoother, but I'll tell you what, it just doesn't feel as stable. And again, I don't know if it's the best comparison because of the fact that I'm comparing a new vehicle to a used vehicle, so kind of hard to say for sure. So when it's all said and done, which one of these trucks do you prefer? Which trim level and why? What are you going to be doing with it? Some people just buy a truck because they like to have it. They may not haul very much or tow very much, but it is nice to have if you need it. But a lot of people don't do much more than just enjoy having a truck. Tell me down in the comments, what you want to see me review next, and I'll do everything I can to make that happen for you. I've got to say a special thanks to my friends here at Jimmy Grandje Ford in Stonewall, Louisiana for loaning me these 2 trucks for the day, and all of you for being kind enough to give me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.